Hi all. Hi Diana. Might just be me and you right now. I'm not sure. For some reason, when I'm on StreamYard, it doesn't always give me the number at the top. So, and sometimes it's not right. So that's weird. So I'm gonna try to read faster today. I haven't talked to anybody yet today. Didn't realize my voice, so I haven't used my voice. Hubby's asleep, so I didn't know I sounded like this. That's why I said doing this, talking to kind of, people typing. So mine's the only voice. I kind of need that because I don't have a lot of people to talk to. Hubby is asleep all day. My daughter calls me sometimes. Oops, something just happened. Where did my chat go? Where's my chat? Hang on. How do I fix this? I laid my glasses on the computer. Oh my gosh. I can't. Oh, there it is. Okay. Comments. Woo! Hi, Cricket. That was scary. The chat disappeared. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm going to dive right in because I know a lot of people watch this on the replay. And I kind of, I tried to go, what's the word I want? I tried to skim through to see if there was anything, I could leave out. But it's just such gobbledygook. And he has so many long explanations. I'll try to skip things if I can. Like when he does examples, I'll see if I can leave those out. We'll try because this one's about 15 pages, so it's going to be long. I'm going to try to read fast. Okay. Alrighty. So we're doing the prenatal experience and birth. Now, as some of us know, people that are in, they know about this. Never ends. We've heard about this a little bit. John Travolta talked about it. He talked about they had a quiet birth, and he tried to explain it on some interview. Hi, Scooter Mom. So I'm actually kind of interested in it, but as I was skimming, this isn't going to be. This might be a little bit tedious, but I'm still kind of interested. To see how he and why L. Ron Hubbard thought they should have the quiet burst. Now, we already know about engrams and that he thinks those are physical or emotional pain stored in the cells or the reactive mind's memory bank. So you want to get rid of engrams or not cause engrams. So that's kind of what we've learned in the book so far. All right, here we go. Prenatal experience and birth. Old women less than 100 years ago talked wisely about prenatal influence and how a woman marked her child. Many such intuitive thoughts are based actually on observed data. It can be observed that the child born out of wedlock is often a luckless creature in a society which frowns upon such bearings. Well, this was written in 1950. These tenets have been held in the marketplace for a great many millennia. Just because they have been held is no reason they are true, but they make an excellent beginning for a chapter on prenatal experience and birth. If Dianetics had worked on obscure theories, such as those of the old woman or those of the mystics who believe that childish delusions are capable of aberrating a child, Dianetics would not be a science of mind. But it was no obscure theory which brought about the discovery of the exact role prenatal experience and birth play in aberration and psychosomatic ills. So I am kind of so he's saying discovery of the role prenatal experience and birth play and aberration of psychosomatic ills. Now, we do know since then that playing music around before the child's born when you're pregnant does seem to change things. And I think if the mom is stressed out a lot or in a bad situation, I think that can have possibly a little bit to do with it. But I don't think it's going to screw up the child for life. But that's just my opinion. I don't know about all the studies. So many schools of mental healing from the Asclepian. I don't know what that is. It's capitalized. Asclepian to the modern hypnotist were studied after the basic philosophy of Dianetics had been postulated. Much data was accumulated. Many experiments were made. The fundamentals about engrams had been formulated, and unconsciousness had been discovered as being a period of actual recording when the theory began to predict new phenomena not hitherto observed. Just like to mention that whole paragraph. He makes it sound like he was involved or there were all these experiments done after he thought up Dianetics. And he makes it sound like he was involved in it when we know he wasn't. Just everybody saying hi. Okay. There has been in recent years a practice called narcosynthesis. All right. Narcosynthesis, the practice of inducing sleep with drugs and then talking to the patient to draw out buried thoughts. Now, I can believe that's been done. There have been a lot of weird experiments done. So, narcosynthesis. This was actually a branch of hypnoanalysis and deep analysis. It did not produce clears, and it did not even produce alleviation in the majority of its cases, but it was discovered to be an aberrative factor in itself. A thing which aberrates may well lead to something which removes aberrations if it is studied scientifically. Narcosynthesis was so studied. Several cases were examined on which narcosynthesis. Okay, I said that wrong. No, I said that right. Narcosynthesis had been employed. Some of these cases had experienced relief from narcosynthesis. Others had become a great deal worse. Working with hypnoanalysis, it was discovered that the technique could be varied until it would actually remove the aberrative charge contained in locks. In treating schizophrenics with narcosynthesis, it was found that the locks, periods of mental anguish, not including physical pain or unconsciousness, would sometimes spring clear and sometimes not. Narcosynthesis is a complicated name for a very ancient process quite well known in Greece and India. It is drug hypnotism, and it is generally employed either by those practitioners who do not know hypnosis or those patients who will not succumb to ordinary hypnotism. Sorry, guys. A shot of sodium pentothal is given intravenously to the patient, and he is asked to count backwards. Shortly, he stops counting, at which the injection is also stopped. The patient is now in a state of deep sleep. That this is not sleep seems to have missed both narcosynthesis and hypnotists. It is actually a depressant on the awareness of an individual so that those attention unit, a quantity of awareness. Any organism is aware to some degree. A rational or relatively rational organism is aware of being aware. Attention units could be said to exist in the mind in varying quantity from person to person. Is he making this stuff up? That has to be made up. Okay. That those attention units which remain behind the curtain of his reactive bank, can be reached directly. These attention units are up against the standard banks. The bypass circuits, the demon circuits, which lie between those banks and the eye, have themselves been bypassed. In other words, a section of the analytical mind has been exposed which is not aberrated. It is not very powerful and it is not highly intelligent, but it has the advantage of being hard up against the standard banks. This is basic personality. Okay, another definition. Basic personality. The basic self, the individual himself. Okay, well, I think I could have figured that out. This is basic personality. The intent and purpose and persistence of these few attention units have the same quality and direction as the whole analytical mind would have if it were clear. It is a very nice cooperative group of attention units, and it is very useful, for basic personality has all recalls: sonic, audio, tactile, smell, pain, etc. It can get at anything that is in the banks, which is everything perceived or thought in a lifetime, minute by minute. These qualities of basic personality have been very poorly described in hypnotism, and it is doubtful, even if it was generally known, that sonic was part of the recall system disclosed by deep hypnotism or the drug hypnotism called narcosynthesis. All right. Hello, hi. Sounds like he's talking about true serum. Yeah, we all know what that is now. Oh, cool. That's fine. So, yeah, we know he talks about hypnotism so much. And last week when we did his history, we found out that he even tried to be a stage hypnotist. So he's really researched hypnotism in all its forms. This sounds like the trials they did with soldiers and the CIA and the military when they drugged people and did these experiments. So this sounds like he might have been studying that in some way. Um, what I'm curious about, and I've never heard, so it's probably not true. Did he ever try drugs with Scientologists or in Dianetics? That was a long time ago, so there's not very many people that are that old. No, I'll bet. I'll no, because he'd already no. Yes, when he was with Jack Parsons, they did a lot of stuff like that. And that was before he wrote the book. That was in the late 40s. So when they were doing the black magic and the drugs and all that. So I'm wondering if he did those tests then, or if he just read about them. Drug hypnotic therapy is notoriously unreliable. It resulted in a lot of false information, included in the book Sybil. Sybil, is that the same one that had like 16 personalities? Just curious. I watched that movie. It was trippy. All right, let's get going. But yeah, so even if he didn't do it with Scientologists, I think he either researched it hard or, read about it, or might have tried it a little bit with the black magic. Oh yeah, so I saw that movie. What's her name? She was in Smokey and the Bandit, the actress. Anyway, it was a true story of somebody that had the most multiple personalities they'd ever seen. And the book was about them going through all the personalities and why they were there. That was, if you ever get a chance, it's an old movie. It's called Sybil. But it's a good movie. Okay, let's move on. Where were we? Okay. A study of basic personality in a multivalent subject. Now, if you remember, valent are other personalities. So he is talking about multiple personalities. Because what he said was when you're unconscious, and somebody is causing you pain and they're a dominant personality, you may take on that valence or kind of personality. What he was saying is like, if you have an abuser, you could become the abuser, is what I got out of that. Sally Field. Oh, it wasn't a true story? Back then we thought it was. That was a long time ago. It's one of those movies though, it always stuck in my mind. It's still a good movie, I think. Okay. So he's talking about multivalence, multi-person. Remember that valent means multi-personality. A study of basic personality in a multivalent subject who had poor memory, no good recalls, and scant imagination disclosed the information that BP, the attention units called basic personality. So I think he talks about BPs a few times. Yep. Remember BP, basic personality, or the attention units called basic personality, was more able to select out data than AP, aberrated personality, as represented by the awake subject. So pretty much he's saying if it didn't work, it's because they were aberrated. And that's a way to just get rid of the data. Or so it was further discovered that AP could ordinarily return better than BP so far as time distance went, but that when AP arrived at the earliest place, it was unable to manage recall. But if AP had gone back and established a vague contact with an incident, drug hypnotism or standard hypnotism used on him when he was in present time no longer returned, would then permit BP to return. Drug hypnotism has seldom been able to force back very early into a patient's life, but by making the strength of AP go back and then using BP for the recall, some very early incidents could be reached. This trick was invented to overcome some of the difficulties which had made drug hypnosis relatively uncertain in results. I read that slow because it hurt my head. But he actually just said what you said, Cricket, that it's unreliable, is what I got out of that. Sybil was supposed to be true, but the shrink lied about a lot of things and went hard against the ethics of the time. When the author died, a lot of BS got. Oh, that's why I didn't know about it, because I just watched the movie and that was a long time ago, so I didn't hear about that. That's sad. Anyway, this paragraph, the AP and the BP. I mean, I pretty much got to the bottom, and he just said this trick was invented to overcome some of the difficulties which made drug hypnosis relatively uncertain in results. So that may be one of the reasons why he didn't perform any kind of hypnotism early on with the drugs, because he knew it was unreliable. Because I wouldn't put it past him to try. So hang on just a second. Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm back. I had to use the nasal spray. Oh, okay. The movie's called Sybil. Just like the book she mentioned, it's just called Sybil with Sally Field. I think it's a 70s or 80s movie. Can't remember. I know it was a long time ago. It really, back in that day, I just remembered that movie. I never forgot it. And there's only a handful of movies I've never forgot. Okay, so let's move on. I wish I could skip some of this. But I know if I skip something, he's going to mention it later on. 1974. Yeah. Okay, then another factor was discovered. All those patients who had been treated by narcosynthesis had become worse every time the people doing the work had crossed over, but left because everybody knew an unconscious person didn't record a period of unconsciousness. When one of these unconscious periods was so probed by the drug hypnosis called narcosynthesis, the patient usually became worse, not better. Doing a little more probing than had been done by the usual practitioners, Dianetics research entered some of the late life unconscious periods and with much labor laid them bare. So he's saying that the Dianetics research, which I don't believe there was much other than his black magic days or reading books, but he's saying that Dianetics fixed that, did better than the scientific community, of course. Okay, no new comments. So he's saying Dianetics entered late life unconscious periods and with much labor laid them bare. When do they do that in Dianetics? Other than the auditor training, I'm trying to figure that out. I was just looking at eBay earlier, and I'm going to get the DVD to this, how to use it, and the workbook. It might help me understand more of how he taught this to people. Now, all drug hypnosis, whether it is called narcosynthesis or a visit from the god, okay, that's who that is, the god Asclepius, is still hypnosis. Whatever is said to a hypnotized subject remains as a positive suggestion, and these positive suggestions are simply engrams with a somewhat lighter effect and a shorter duration. When a drug is present, the hypnotism is complicated by the fact that hypnotic drugs are, after all, poisons. The body is then possessed of a permanent, at least until Dianetics was discovered, somatic, permanent somatic, to go along with the suggestion. Drug hypnotism invariably creates an engram. Whatever a practitioner says to a drug subject becomes engrammic in some degree. In the course of Dianetic research, it first was supposed, playing back the careless chatter of practitioners out of the minds of patients they had placed under drug hypnosis, that this carelessness in saying so many aberrative things was responsible for some of the failure. But this was found to be true in a very limited sense. Then it was discovered that when the unconscious periods were reached by drug hypnosis, they refused to lift, even when the patient recounted them scores of times. This was blamed on the drug character of the hypnosis. Straight hypnotism was then used to reach these late unconscious periods, and these periods still failed to lift. Therefore, it was adjudged safe to continue drug use on those patients who refused hypnosis, and the AP to BP alternate trick began to be employed. It was discovered by drug hypnosis where it was necessary, and straight hypnosis where that was possible, that the schizophrenic, the multivalent aberree, could be made to reach very early periods in every case. And it was further found that an early period of unconsciousness would often lift. Experimentation brought about a scientific axiom: the earlier the period of the unconsciousness, the more likely it is to lift. That is a fundamental axiom of Dianetic therapy. So, the earlier the period of unconsciousness, the more likely to lift. I would think that would be true just because it's a far away memory, whether you remember it or not, but it's degraded over time. I can't remember everything when I was 5 or 10. So, I mean, that's just kind of common sense that older memories would be easier to get rid of. Manic depressives who had sonic recall were worked upon, most of them by straight hypnosis, and it was discovered that they also followed this rule. But it was most dramatic in the multivalent aberree. He's talking about multiple personalities, but he has to change the name. In the multivalent aberree, for when the engram did not lift, it impinged against his analytical mind when he was awakened and created a variation in his psychosis and brought with it psychosomatic illnesses as well. This brought about an understanding of why the multivalent aberree under narcosynthesis was made worse whenever some practitioner had glided over, but not entered, of course, a late life period of unconsciousness. Now came the problem of applying the axiom. It was postulated that the primary engram was in some way suppressed later engrams. In view of other data and postulates, this was an entirely reasonable assumption. The earlier a person went in the life of a multivalent aberree, the less likelihood there was of a re-stimulating him artificially. Often an engram at around 2 or 3 years of age would lift entirely and give him a great deal of relief. The problem of this research was very far from the same problem of those who, not knowing about the reactive mind and unconsciousness, tried merely to find computing factors on a rational level or incidents of everyday life as aberrative factors in a patient. Yeah, I know. I was going to say that too, that schizophrenics isn't multiple personality. Schizophrenia isn't multiple. Oh, personality, completely different things. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'm glad you brought it up. I should have said it. Um, where are we? Oh, the problem of this research was very far from the same problem of those who, not knowing about the reactive mind and unconsciousness, tried merely to find computing factors on a rational level. Oh, I said that already. Or incidents of everyday life as aberrative factors in a patient. When an engram is touched, it is very resistive, particularly above the age of 2 years. Further, the whole reactive bank was buried deeply under foggy layers of unconsciousness and was further safeguarded by a mechanism of the analytical mind which tended to prohibit it from touching pain or painful emotion. The reactive bank was protecting itself all the way through the research, but it was obviously the answer. The problem was how to achieve its relief if it could be relieved. Having made several multivalent personalities intensely uncomfortable, a new necessity level was reached whereby something had to be done about the problem. But there was this shining hope, the above axiom, a bridge between insanity and sanity, had to be built, and there in the axiom one had at least a glimmer of a plan. The earlier one had experienced this fog and pain. The lighter these engrams seemed to be. Then one day, a multivalent patient under drugs went back to his birth. He suffered the pain, and it was very painful with this crude technique, for Dianetics had not yet smoothed down to a well-oiled piece of machinery, and he floundered through the unconsciousness of the period, and he fought the doctor who had tried to put drops in his eyes, and he generally resented the entire proceedings. AP had been sent down first, then later under drugs, BP had contacted the incident. This seemed a remarkable day for Dianetics. After 20 runs through birth, the patient experienced a recession of all somatics and unconsciousnesses. No, just unconsciousness. And aberrative content. He had asthma. It seemed that this asthma had been caused by the doctor's enthusiasm in yanking him off the table just when he was fighting for his first breath. He had conjunctivitis that came from the eye drops. he had sinusitis that had come from the nose swabs used by the pretty nurse. Okay, now he's getting into it. Hi, Lori. You haven't missed much. I think you can just go from here. He's just talking about drug hypnosis versus regular hypnosis and things like that. He's just now finally getting into the prenatal experience and the engrams it causes. So I'll read that last paragraph for you about the. Okay, I'll read this paragraph for you because now he's finally getting into why or what he thinks causes engrams at birth. So it says, this seems a remarkable day for Dianetics, of course, because they discovered this. After 20 runs through birth, the patient experienced a recession of all somatics and unconsciousness and aberrative content. He had had asthma. It seemed that the asthma had been caused by the doctor's enthusiasm in yanking him off the table just when he was fighting for his first breath. He had had conjunctivitis. That came from the eye drops. He had sinusitis that had come from the nose swabs used by the pretty nurse. So he's not just talking about having a quiet birth. He's talking about the whole thing. I mean, that happens to every child. And not everybody has asthma. Not everybody has sinusitis. It's weird. Rejoicing was held, for he seemed to be a new man. A primary psychosis about being pushed around had vanished. The subjective reality of this incident was intense. Objective reality did not matter, but this patient had a mother near at hand, and objective reality was established simply by returning her in therapy to his birth. They had not communicated about it in detail. The recording of her sequence compared word for word with his sequence, detail for detail, name for name. Possibility, even if they had communicated of such duplication outside the Dianetic situation, was mathematically impossible, and she had been unconscious during his birth and had always supposed that the affair had been quite different, and the return data collapsed her awake description of it as being so much fable. In order to make sure that this was no freak, for it is a very poor research man who will base conclusions on a series of one. 2 manic depressives were returned to their births, and both completed the experience. But one of these 2 birth engrams would not lift. The postulated axiom was called into play again. If one could find the earliest engram, then the others would lift each in turn. That was the hope. The manic depressive whose birth had not lifted was returned to a period before birth in an effort to find an earlier engram. Okay. Structural theories, as fondly held for ages, had thoroughly collapsed already when unconscious fog and pain had been penetrated to discover the engram as an aberrative unit. Tests had held up the discovery that all data, awake, asleep, and unconscious, from the moment of conception on, was always recorded somewhere in the mind or body. The little matter of myelin sheathing, the fatty layer of tissues coating the nerves. Where'd that go? I lost it. Oh. Since it had already been disproven by laboratory research, which included the reaching of birth, was discarded. The theory that no recordings can take place in the mind until the nerves are sheathed depends upon a theoretical postulate, has never been subjected to scientific research, and depends for its existence upon authority alone, and a science which depends on authority alone is a breath in the wind of truth and is therefore no science at all. That babies cannot record until the myelin sheathing is formed has about as much truth on investigation as the fact that for the baby, after all, is composed of cells, and it is evidenced now by much research that the cell, not the not an organ, records the engram. Now we went from the brain records the engrams to, oh gosh, you guys, I'm too old to sit in Indian style. My hips and knees are screaming. So at first he said everything was recorded in the reactive and analytical mind banks. Now it's recorded in the cell. And what was bad about what was we kind of brushed that off as being silly until maybe not the cells, but oh no Nora did I need to put that link in my community tab. She did a show on trauma and showed this woman that was studying kids and grandkids of Holocaust survivors that went through the Holocaust, and that they had a gene that caused mental anguish, in different ways that they got. So that's generational trauma is passed down in a gene. So he's not that far off. He's saying that it's recorded by that person in the cells. Well, I guess that's true, really. But I think, they say a clock is right, a broken clock is right twice a day. Hey, Reggie. So, thus, there was no inhibition about looking earlier than birth for what Dianetics had begun to call basic, the first engram of the first chain of engrams, and an earlier engram was reached. So basic is the first engram, period. Oh, also I wanted to say, so he believed that you could record memories after conception. Yet David Miscavige is busing people to the clinics to end pregnancies. That may be why LRH didn't do that. But you would think it just contradicts itself. It contradicts what they do. In other words, so if they're reading this book, all right. It has since been discovered that a great deal of recording is done by the child in the womb, which is not engramic. For a time, it was thought that the child in the womb records on the proposition of extended hearing, where hearing tunes up in the presence of danger, and particularly during unconsciousness. But the first research discovered prenatal engrams to be most easily reached when they contained a great deal of pain. Cells, not the individual, are evidence to record pain, and the reactive engram bank is composed only of cells. Okay, so there's where he talks about the engram bank of the reactive mind is composed of cells. Okay, so now he's explaining that part. Hi, Queen. Mhm. Recourse to nature rather than recourse to authority is the very building block of modern science. So long as Galen remained an authority on blood, none but madmen like Da Vinci, Shakespeare, and William Harvey even thought to experiment to find out what truly was the action of blood. So long as Aristotle remained the authority for all, the Dark Ages reigned. Advanced Advance comes from asking free-minded questions of nature, not from quoting the works and thinking the thoughts of bygone years. Recourse to precedent is an assertion that yesterday's mentors were better informed than today's, an assertion which fades before the truth that knowledge is compounded of the experience of yesterday's, of which we have more, most certainly than the best informed mentor of yesterday itself. Man, this guy totally contradicts everything that he did, because he's talking about having free thinking, asking free-minded questions. Yet you're not allowed to do any of that in Scientology. In that Dianetics was based on a philosophy that used the cell as the basic building block. The fact that recording of engrams was done by cells came with less surprise than it otherwise might have. The engram is not a memory, it is a cellular trace of recordings impinged deeply into the very structure of the body itself. Oh, really, Reggie? Oh, your opinion is welcome. I don't know if you heard me talk about it before, but in high school, I was really interested. I wanted to go into psychology, but I wanted to go into research. I wanted to study like criminally insane or like serial killer brains, because I always thought those psychopaths I always get those two mixed up, by the way. One of those, the ones that don't feel any empathy, and it's like they're missing. I've seen people that are missing something when they're born. You can see it in the eyes. And I wanted to study the brain. So that was always something I wanted to get into. Yeah, LRH did crazy well. It's the one thing he got right. I know, right? I know. So that might be why I'm so interested in this, because I really want to get into this guy's brain to find out how he did what he did to so many people. That's why I'm doing this. And I want to see, why people got in before the internet. Because most people that are in now are second and third gens. So they got in, way before anybody had access to the internet. Try not to hit the table. I've discovered that the best way to use the Dianetics book is as a surface to break up some great local bud. Lori, my YouTube life is killing me. I know. There are some days I have to not do Scientology, but it's rare. Thank you, Reggie. All right. Did I just change pages? Yes. All right. More water. I've got to order that biotin. It's an enzyme for dry mouth, and literally one spray, because my meds also give me dry mouth. So I need to get some more. Okay, the experience of which cells themselves were capable had already been tested. It had been found that a monocell divided not only its substance, but gave its total experience, as a master disk will make duplicates to its offspring. Now, this is a peculiarity of monocells. They survive as identities. Each is personally its forebear. Cell A divides to a first generation. This generation is also cell A. The second generation, the second division, creates an entity called, creates an entity which is still cell A, lacking the necessity of such laborious processes, has construction and birth and growth before reproduction. The monocell simply splits, and everything it has learned could be postulated to be contained in the new generation. Cell A dies, but through generations from it, the latest generation is still cell A. Man's belief that he is to live in his progeny might possibly derive from this cellular identity of procreation. Another interesting possibility lies in the fact that even neurons exist in embryo. He actually gives a description of what an embryo is. Like, no, not everybody knows that. In the zygote, and neurons do not themselves divide, but are like organisms and may have the virus as their base building block. So now he's saying that the memories and engrams exist in the neurons. Dianetics, as a study of function and the science of mind, does not need any postulate concerning structure. However, the only test is whether or not a fact works. If it does work and can be used, it is a scientific fact. And the prenatal engram is a scientific fact. Is it though? Tested and checked for objective reality, it still stands firm. And as for subjective reality, the acceptance of the prenatal engram as a working fact alone makes possible the clear. Oh, yeah. Oh, what time is your show tomorrow, Scooter Mom? Put it in the chat. At the end of a series of 270 clears and alleviations, a short series of 5 cases was taken to finally settle the argument. These 5 cases were not permitted to admit anything before birth. They were treated with everything Dianetics, hypnotism, and other therapeutics could offer, and no clear was obtained. This ruled out the personality of the operator or suggestion or faith as factors in Dianetics. These 5 cases had never been informed of prenatal engrams. Each served in toward them. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Each swerved in toward them, but was restrained without informing him that engrams existed that early. The 5 were alleviated as to some variety of psychosomatic ills, but the ills were only alleviated, not completely cured. The aberrations remained, but little changed. They were extremely disappointed since each had heard something of the miracles Dianetics could perform. You know what this reminds me of? Um, Back when they had they have the, I don't know what you call them, the preachers that heal and work with snakes, and they'd have tent revivals, and they're like, "You're healed." Hit them on the head. Like, it just kind of, I have that picture when he talks about um you know, Dianetics and research and curing people. 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's 5 o'clock my time tomorrow. Okay, I'll be there. Matter of fact, I'm gonna set my alarm right now so I won't forget. I don't always have my phone in my hand when my notifications come up. So 5, so 4:50 tomorrow. Got it. All right. 4 p.m. your time, Lori. Okay. No face. Hi. Let's say that is cruel. Buds can't consent. You guys. Okay. Ooh, we gotta get moving. We've got a few more pages. All right. I'm trying to read fast. But I don't want to read so fast you can't get it. Where did I end? There we go. Over here. Oh, it was the miracle of Dianetics. So they were extremely disappointed since each had heard something of the miracles Dianetics could perform. Before them, 270 cases had been worked, and 270 cases had reached prenatal engrams, and 270 cases had been cleared or alleviated as the Dianeticists chose and time permitted. Unless this was added later, because this book is from 91. Where did he perform this on 270 Dianeticists? Because before 1950, before he wrote the book, I don't believe anything was being done under Dianetics. So is this completely made up? I think so. I think this is all bullcrap. He just wrote numbers down. And 270 cases had been cleared or alleviated as the Dianeticists chose and time permitted. All could have been cleared with an additional average of 100 or so hours, for each of the persons who were alleviated. In short, on random cases and selected cases, so that at least 2 of each classification of neurosis or psychosis were included in the clearing when prenatal engrams and birth were taken into account and used in therapy. Results were obtained. When these factors were not taken into account, results were no more favorable than those attained in the best success of past schools, which is not nearly good enough for a science of mind. Dianetics had prenatal and birth engrams, which I gotta start that over. I had a thought. Dianetics had prenatal and birth engrams wished off on it as facts existing in the nature of things. That past schools have been passing over these engrams and into the prenatal area without success does not mean that prenatals could not be found any more than it means that these past schools found much value in prenatal experience when they considered it at all. The problem is slightly more complex. The difficulty lay in finding the reactive bank which was occluded by unconsciousness, which had never before been penetrated wittingly as unconsciousness. The discovery of this reactive bank led to the discovery of prenatal engrams, which are quite different from prenatal memory. I want to mention something. Oh, Carrie, I got to go up a little. Oh, hi, Carrie Ann. Oh, thank you. Thanks for stopping. I'm going to say something here while you're here. So, in Dianetics, he says all of this is cells and your memory banks in your mind. So, how does that go into the OT levels? And then you're told, no. Are you told, no, it's not the cells, it's these body thetans that are attached to you, is why you have all your problems. So how does he go from scientific data? So is it both, or does the body thetans take over for? I'm not sure what words I want to use. From what they were told was cells. So how do you go like all this time through all these courses, being told it's uh, in the reactive mind and your cells and your memory banks, to now you're on the OT level and you're told, oh no, it's thousands of body thetans making you sick. I would like to talk to a survivor to see what that, if they know anything about the OT levels. Tammy, I believe that's why a lot of people stopped believing and considered it MUS. Oh, which is much useless shit. Well, we know a lot of people, I think, that got to OT level 3 and found out about the aliens. That's when they were like, oh, I'm done. And I think a lot of people stopped believing right there. There's a 1977 newspaper article called Church of Scientology, Religion or Traveling Medicine Show. You nailed it. Oh, thanks. Body Thetans and Past came after Dianetics was written. Yeah, it worked into that's when you got into Scientology, but a lot of people originally got into Scientology through the Dianetics book in the early years. So a lot of those people are too old to talk to. But I would like to know how they reconciled all of this stuff they were taught, and then you get to know it's body thetans. Yeah, I'll take that link too, or if it's possible, I'd like to read that. All right. Yeah, traveling medicine show is exactly what this sounds like. The miracles of Dianetics will heal you. I'm not good with other voices. All right, where are we? Did I change pages? I think I did. Yes. After a few cases had been examined as to objective and subject reality, Dianetics was forced to accept, if it wished a clear, the fact that the cells of the fetus record. A few more cases and a little more experience discovered that the embryo cells record, and suddenly it was discovered that recording begins in the cells of the zygote, which is to say, with conception. Did he just say you have memories all the way to conception? Dude, that's a reach. Dianetic Scientology with past lives are two different thoughts or concepts. Scientology continues on the back of Dianetics. Yeah, I when we get to the end of the book, I'm gonna I might keep going with other books because I like doing this. Like I want to do the Way to Happiness, but I want to see what book came after this, and just kind of keep going that way. If anybody wants to stay, I just want to read it myself. And reading aloud is really helping me think about it a lot more because normally I don't read aloud. No Face is now selling snake oil. How much is it, you ask? How much you got? Yeah, that's what they say in Scientology. How much you got? I'll take whatever you got. Oh nope, we'll take all of it. Yeah, because I was just watching. I think it was Ono Nora again. I've been watching her a lot lately. She was talking about if you want to buy a new car or even a house or something, and they will pressure you to the point that Sorry, guys. My fibro seizes up my vocal cords sometimes. Ugh. So they pressure you until you don't get that new car and give them the money that you were saving for the new car. And they pressure you not to buy a new house. They want that money. And I'm just like, that's a cult. That's a money hungry cult. If they're taking all of your personal belongings. And by the way, that car that was seen, I think in San Francisco, that had 2 different plates. And somebody was asking if that's okay. You know what my thought was? That it was a Sea Org member that couldn't afford the registration and possibly either took plates or whatever, and they could only get one each. That was just a thought that I had. They don't have the money to register their vehicles. I mean, they get $50 a week. Registration here is like $75. Also, at the end of the book, is there an 800 number that you can call for more information on Dianetics? Just curious if it was still active, if there is. Ooh. They've got a whole bunch of stuff in here at the end. All this, I'm trying not to get too far off. So you can send this card in. Oh, there's the number. I'm going to call it. Probably is. They would probably keep it forever. Okay.
Thank you for calling the Dianetics information line. Our hours are from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Monday.
Did you hear that? Did you hear it? It wasn't science. It said Dianetics hotline. Oh, I think Fogg said they finally fixed the plates after she kept saying it at the door. Well, yeah, they got seen. I didn't block my number. It's okay. I don't care. I don't ever answer. Yeah, so it's still there. This is a book from 91. So there's that. And then there's all these pages of more books to order. Basic Dianetic books. Oh, wait, hey, here's the list. The next book I need. The Dianetics of Life, Introduction to Dianetic Discoveries. Right, we'll do this at the end. I'll go through these if people want to stay. I got to get through this. We got a few more pages. So at the end, I'll talk about the books. Which is okay, so it said the zygote, which is to say with conception, that the body recalls conception, which is a high-level survival activity, has little to do with engrams. Most patients today, sooner or later, startle themselves by finding themselves swimming up a channel or waiting to be connected with. The recording is there, and there's little use arguing with a pre-clear that he cannot recall being a sperm. Engrammic or not, as the case may be, it must be remarked because any Dianeticist will encounter this. Let me look at that again. Most patients to date, sooner or later, startle themselves by finding themselves swimming up a channel or waiting to be connected with. So it's trying to say that it remembers being a sperm or an egg. Yeah. Okay. Anyone postulating that return to the womb was an ambition should have examined life in the womb a little more carefully. Even a poor scientist would have at least tried to find out if anybody could recall it before he made a statement that there was a memory of it. But life in the womb does not seem to be the paradise it has been poetically, if not scientifically represented. Actuality discloses that 3 men and a horse in a telephone booth would have but little less room than an unborn baby. The womb is wet, uncomfortable, and unprotected. I disagree. Oh no. Uh, I posted that article on my community page. It's not easy to read, but I can add a transcript later. Okay, we'll check it out. You can go over to Cricket and get that article. But yeah, I wouldn't want to remember over that part. Oh, so we're talking about in the womb though. He said what you would remember is wet, uncomfortable, and unprotected. I disagree because A, you are protected by several factors. And a lot of moms say, talk to their babies and do all this great stuff. So even if you did have those memories, I don't agree with some of that. Mama sneezes, baby gets knocked unconscious. Mama runs lightly and blithely into a table, and baby gets its head staved in. Jeez, that's what. Does this guy not understand the human body? That is the whole reason for the fluid and stuff, to keep the baby protected. Mama has constipation, and baby, in the anxious effort, gets squashed. Totally written by a man. Papa becomes passionate, and baby has the sensation of being put into a running washing machine. Mama gets hysterical, baby gets an engram. I kind of do believe if there's a lot of stress around the mom, that maybe the baby would notice. Papa hits mama, baby gets an engram. Junior bounces on mama's lap, baby gets an engram, and so it goes. People have scores of prenatal engrams when they are normal. They can have more than 200, and each one is aberrative. Each contains pain and unconsciousness. Engrams received as a zygote are potentially the most aberrative, being wholly reactive. Those received as an embryo are intensely aberrative. Those received as the fetus are enough to send people to institutions all by themselves. Zygote, embryo, fetus, infant, child, adult. These are all the same person. Time has been considered the great healer that can be filed with the things everybody knew. On a conscious level, it may be true, but on a reactive level, time is nothing. The engram, whenever received, is strong in proportion to the degree it is restimulated. The mechanism of an engram has an interesting feature. It is not reasoned or analyzed, nor does it have any meaning until it has been keyed in by the analytical data the baby has. The reactive mind steals meaning from the analytical mind. An engram is just so many wave recordings until it is keyed in, and those recordings, by such restimulation, become effective upon the analytical mind. It may be that the engram never has any reason or meaning in itself, but only thrusts its waves forward as unreasoned things at the body and analyzer, and the body and analyzer, through mechanisms, give them meaning, containing meaning. No, give them meaning. So if you remember, the analyzer means brain. He has to make up new words. So all he's saying is the body and the brain, through mechanisms gives them meaning. In other words, the engram is not a sentient recording containing meanings. It is merely a series of impressions such as a needle might make on wax. These impressions are meaningless to the body until the engram keys in, at which time aberrations and psychosomatics occur. Okay. Wait, did I just change pages again? Yes. When I change pages, I get confused. I'm looking for what I just read. All right. Thus, it can be understood that the prenatal child has no remotest idea of what is being said in terms of words. It does learn, being an organism, that certain things may mean certain dangers, but this is every bit as far as it goes with recording. The mind must become more or less fully formed before the engram can impinge into the analytical level. The prenatal child can, of course, experience terror when the parents or the professional abortionist start after it and thrust it full of holes. It knows fear and pain. Oh, that just hurt my heart. Oh, do you have to say that? I'm asking hubby for a new bottle of water. He's awake. Okay. Oh, thanks, Scooter Mom. Lori. Funny. Lori. Yeah, I said it right. That's fine. Here's for that article if you need to go to Cricket to get it. Ugh. But this guy doesn't hold back, when he says stuff. So, thank you. Thanks. So, guys, I drink a lot of water, not just because I'm talking. Being in Texas this long, it's pretty much all I drink. It is, however, this prenatal child an advantage in its situation being surrounded by amniotic fluid and dependent for nutrition on its mother, being in a state of growth and easily reformed physically. It can repair an enormous amount of damage and does. The recovery qualities of the human body are never higher than before birth. Damage which would maim an infant for life or would kill a grown man can be taken in stride by the prenatal child. That's a bit much. I don't know about that. Not that this damage does not make an engram, it certainly does, complete with all data and speech and emotion, but that this damage does not easily kill is the point here. Why people try to abort children is a problem which has its answer only in aberration. David Miscavige, he had to have taken this stuff out because he's completely doing the opposite. And we know by the way, I was on eBay before I went on looking for more. I found a 2007 edition. I'm going to get it so that I can study what he took out. Now, there is a site that I found, and when I tried to get the link, but it's from the Wayback Machine. It has somebody went through and all of the writings, all of the books, and found all of the changes and put it in there, and you can go click on different books. But I was unable to share the link. That's okay. If we can go. So I can look there too. A society which suppresses sex as evil and which is so aberrated that any member of it will attempt an abortion in a society which is dooming itself to ever rising insanity. For it is a scientific fact that abortion attempts are the most important factor in aberration. The child on whom the abortion is attempted is condemned to live with murderers whom he reactively knows to be murderers through all his weak and helpless youth. I don't know too many tries that weren't successful. I know. Everything he just wrote here contradicts how they view these things in Sea Org mostly. He forms unreasonable attachments to grandparents, has terrified reactions to all punishments, grows ill easily, and suffers long. And there is no such thing as a guaranteed way to abort a child. Well, this was written in a long time ago. Use contraceptives, not a knitting needle. Oh, God. Okay, I can read. I gotta leave that part out. Once the child is conceived, no matter how shameful the circumstances, no matter the mores, no matter the income, that man or woman who would attempt an abortion on an unborn child is attempting a murder which will seldom succeed and is laying the foundation of a childhood of illness and heartache. Anyone attempting an abortion is committing an act against the whole society. In the future, any judge or doctor recommending an abortion should be instantly deprived of position and practice, whatever his reason. David Miscavige, you need to be listening. I don't even know where my mic is. Okay. If a person knows he has committed this crime against a child who has been born, he should do all possible to have that child cleared as soon as possible after the age of 8, and in the meantime should treat that child with all the decency and courtesy possible in order to keep the engram out of restimulation. Otherwise, he may send that child to an institution for the insane. However, many billions America spends yearly on institutions for the insane and jails for the criminals are spent primarily because of attempted abortions done by some mother to whom children are a curse, not a blessing of God. Now he mentions God. Antipathy toward children means a blocked second dynamic. Physiological examination of anyone with such blockage will demonstrate a physical derangement of the genitalia or glands. Dianetic therapy would demonstrate attempted abortion or an equally foul prenatal existence and would clear the individual. The case of the child who, as this is read, is not yet born, but upon whom abortion has been attempted is not hopeless. If he is treated with decency after he is born, and if he is not restimulated by witnessing quarrels, he will wax and grow fat until he is 8 and can be cleared, at which time he will probably be much startled to learn the truth. But that startlement and any antagonism included in it will vanish with the finishing of the clear, and his love of his parents will be greater than before. All these things are scientific facts, tested and rechecked and tested again, and with them can be produced a clear on whom our racial future depends. That's it. I'm done. This MF. Oh, I know. And I just watched an Aaron video where there was a recording of L. Ron Hubbard talking about God, I think. I can't remember. It was in the last couple days. Go watch it. He was talking about Scientology and Christianity. But yeah. And why was this so attempted unaliving? Like, he made it sound like it was commonplace to attempt it and it not succeed. Maybe in the 50s it was, the 40s and 50s. Maybe it was. I don't know. So, so this chapter on the prenatal birth and why they have quiet births is poppycock. I mean, I do believe that if there's a lot of arguing and yelling around a pregnant woman, I think that it does affect the baby, or if the mom is stressed. And I do think if there's a lot of pretty music and a lot of calmness, I think it does affect. I don't think it affects him as badly as what he's saying, nor do I believe the sperm and the egg has memories. But he wrote it down. Quiet birth is madness. I know. I did 2 natural births. There is no way you can stop. Yeah, Diana, she's not really my mod. So, if I could do it, you know what? If I can do it, I'll put it in my description after I leave. Because I say that when I'm on the street, but I just have my phone and I'm getting in the car and I forget. But right now I'm on the computer and I can do that. So, what have you guys gotten out of this? LRH may not believe in abortion. He just denies the existence of one of his own kids. Oh, we know he's a douchebag. He's a total douchebag. I picture him writing and laughing. I know, right? There's no way. There's no way he actually did these studies. There's no way that most of this is not scientific fact, but he says it is. Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm gonna make all this money. And he's a science fiction writer, so he's making shit up. We know he can. He did it for years before he wrote this book. But what gets me is, if David Miscavige changed the books, he would have had to take out most of this whole chapter. I'm not sure what I really think about this BS. Yeah. Same here to an extent. My thoughts are, he was a science fiction writer. He wanted to start some sort of religion. He hated psychiatry. And so he had to come up with this whole theory that bypassed psychiatrists. That you had to go clear, that you had to do this certain stuff. And the thing is, in those years, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I just say before the internet, because it was hard to research anything. But seriously, the 50s, 60s, mental health was shushed. You weren't allowed to talk about it. You got treated quietly. And think about what the asylums were like all the way up for many years to, I mean, you went in there and it was abusive. And kidnapped his kid and tells his wife, who is married under false pretenses, that the kid is deceased. Yeah. We read about that in his history, that he kidnapped one of his kids because his wife was trying to get him put in an insane asylum, his second wife. And he found out and took measures. So she had to write a statement that he was this great, smart, wonderful person to get her kid back. So, yeah, he hated anything that didn't agree with him. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's some more up here. I've worked in mental health for 14 years. Among my clients have been way more attempts than completed acts. More have lost lives at the hands of others. Sadly, yeah. I'm convinced it needs to be understood in the context of the time and popular culture of the era. Yeah, I have to remember that we have to remember that people couldn't go research, couldn't just Google research into engrams and find out that he was full of BS. You know, they said he was charming. Jack Parsons said he was charming. He screwed over everybody he ever met or worked with. I'm going to go more into his history in another video. But oh yeah, that was what we read and when we were reading his history. But this is exactly why I'm doing this. To understand why Mitch Brisker, why he is the way he is. When he joined in the 60s, he was an addict, and why he's only been out a couple of years. And I think the reason we're having issues with him is he was one of those, like other execs, the older people that are, a lot of them are first gens. They're old enough to be first gens, and they got in through the Dianetics or early Scientology. They got out because they didn't like the way they were being treated. They didn't get out because they didn't believe the Scientology anymore. Some maybe did. So it's hard to get good concrete information out of them. Where's Marco at? Oh, there you are. Hi. Well, yes. It only when we did the history of Dianetics, literally 3 months after it was released, it tanked because he tried to. Nobody bought it. The people that helped him produce it, gave him money, all resigned, and they had started all these Dianetic centers, and I think it went bankrupt. And that's how, I forgot his name, his partner got the rights to Dianetics, and why he started writing Scientology. He would have stuck with the Dianetics had he not lost the rights to it for a couple years. But literally within 3 months of releasing it, there was all this hoopla. He had a psychiatrist or doctor sign off on it and say it was great. And then, so that's 1950, when people were looking for something other than going to an insane asylum. They didn't, mental health wasn't, if you had a lot of money, you could go to a nicer asylum. But they were just horrendous places to go. I missed something. Oh, I missed that. I gotta go back. Excuse me. Everybody's laughing their butts off at Scooter Mom. Sorry, Scooter Mom, I have to put it up. But yeah, again, I talk about, that's why I wanted to do this. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people that started and why they indoctrinated their children, and then now their grandchildren are in, you know. I could see how people in need fell into this, and they had Dianetic centers you could walk into. So even though it was in the papers and stuff, it wasn't always widespread, and not everybody would have read it. So he there was still a lot of the Dianetic centers and people that were still loyal to this stuff. But that's why he went into the Scientology and stuff. But yeah, I'd like to know what. So we were talking about the books, next book. So in the back here, we called the 1-800 number earlier, and it's real. Oh, if they call me, I'm gonna be like, well, I'm a protester, but you can call me all you want. I'll start talking to them. I kind of want them to call me. So, well, that's in the middle of a chapter. Mechanisms and aspects of therapy. That's later. That's in the end of the book. So where'd that list go? Oh, here it is. He's got so much in the back of the book, it's ridiculous. Glossary, index. All right, here we go. Basic Dianetics books. The Dynamics of Life, an Introduction to Dianetics Discovery. Concise introduction to the subjects of Dianetics, spiritual healing technology. Now he's calling it spiritual healing. Learn how the reactive mind was discovered. Dianetics, the evolution of science. This book tells the story of how Dianetics technology was developed and how you can use Dianetics breakthroughs to realize your own true capabilities. I'd like to read that one. Self-analysis. Use a few minutes each day to unlock a stronger, more confident you. Then science of survival. I've seen that in the window. Is there a way to know in advance how people react to you and your goals? Then the basic Dianetics picture book. I saw that on eBay. A visual aid for a quicker Oh, I thought it was for children. A visual aid for a quicker understanding and explanation of Dianetics technology. I'm going to get that. Learn the structure of the reactive mind and how negative mental pictures can interfere with your self-confidence and ability to think clearly. There's a lot of people that would have loved this stuff. Then you got basic Scientology books. Scientology, the fundamentals of thought. So I'd kind of like to go in the way the actual people would go in order of the books. Books about the purification rundown. Books help you help others. The Volunteer Minister's Handbook. Advanced Dianetics books. Dianetics 55. Child Dianetics. Research and Discovery Series. Notes on the lectures. Handbook for pre-clears. Advanced Procedure and Axioms. Then Advanced Scientology books. Books for workplace. Dianetics and Scientology study aids. Books about the e-meter. And reference materials. And the 1-800 number again. You guys. Dianetics audio cassettes. Look at, read these Dianetics books. So the same books he already listed, now he has pictures. I'm like, are they trying to get to a certain order your books today? Learn more about Dianetics, films and lectures. Oh, I also found the DVDs. I think I said that earlier. So yeah, I might keep going with this series into some more books. So the next chapter is Contagion, of aberration. Disease is contagious. Germs traveling from one individual to another wander through an entire society, respecting none until stopped by such things as sulfa or penicillin. Aberrations are contagious. Like germs, they respect none and carry forward from individual to individual, from parents to child, respecting none until they are stopped by Dianetics. That's the beginning of the next chapter. Just wow. I mean, some of the stuff, is basic things that they would have known back in 1950 or late 40s when he was writing it. But not thirsty. I just have the dry mouth. Goodness. So that sounds kind of interesting next week. So I might do a couple more videos today. I'm in the mood. I'm gonna do the other. See, we only read in his history the part that related to Dianetics, how he came about it, and up into Scientology. But now I need to talk about his earlier life and some other things. I'm going to try to keep them short. And let's see, there were a couple other videos I wanted to make. So I can't wait. I know. So I thought this was going to be boring, and it was a little bit. But finding out that he thought abortion was morally wrong and that embryos have engrams and memories really throws a wrench into what David Miscavige has been doing. So I'm going to go to that website and see if this chapter is in the current editions, because there's no way it could be in there. Oh, thank you, Diana. The next chunk sounds like laying the foundation for disconnection. Could be. So thanks y'all for sticking around. I'll see you this week out on the street, and then next week for Dianetics. And so y'all have a good week if I don't see you again.